Zhang Adun. The story goes that in Weihui Prefecture of Henan Province, there was a man named Zhang. He was young, reserved, broad-minded, and courageous. He dared to speak and act decisively. At that time, there was a wealthy family with a huge mansion. Due to ghostly occurrences during the day and successive deaths of family members, they were willing to sell the mansion at a low price. Greedy for the bargain, Zhang purchased the mansion and moved in. However, due to the vastness of the estate and the scarcity of family members, the eastern courtyard's pavilions and towers were overgrown with mugwort and wormwood, resembling a small forest. It was left in a state of neglect. Every night, the family members were frightened and uneasy, whispering to each other in fear of ghosts. More than 2 months later, a maid died. Not long after, Zhang's wife went to the eastern courtyard's pavilion one evening and fell ill upon her return. After a few days, she passed away. The fear among the family grew, and they advised Zhang to move to another place, but he didn't listen. Nevertheless, being alone without a partner, he felt desolate and sorrowful. The maids and servants also occasionally recounted the strange phenomena, disturbing Zhang. In a fit of anger, he took his bedding and lay down alone in the abandoned pavilion, keeping a candle lit to observe any strange occurrences. After a long while of silence, he fell asleep. Suddenly, someone extended their hand into his bed, searching repeatedly. When Zhang woke up and looked, it turned out to be an elderly servant woman. Her ears were coiled, her hair was disheveled, and her face was greatly swollen. Zhang knew she was a ghost, so he grabbed her arm and pushed her, saying with a smile, "I wouldn't dare to learn from your esteemed appearance." The old servant felt ashamed, withdrew her hand, and walked away with small steps. After a while, a young woman emerged from the northwest corner. She had a graceful demeanor, and suddenly she appeared under the light, scolding angrily, "Where does this audacious fellow come from? Daring to sleep so soundly here?" Zhang sat up and replied with a smile, "I am the owner of this place, waiting to collect rent from you." He got up, approached her, and reached out to grab her. The young woman hurriedly evaded. Zhang first blocked her path at the northwest corner. The woman had no choice but to sit on his bed. Zhang examined her closely and, illuminated by the candlelight, found her as beautiful as a celestial being. Gradually, he embraced her in his arms. The young woman asked with a smile, "Aren't you afraid of ghosts, reckless one? They might harm you." Zhang gently loosened her clothes, and she didn't resist much. Later, she said, "My surname is Zhang, and my nickname is Adun. Because I mistakenly married a man who was obstinate, immoral, and deviant, I suffered torment and humiliation. My resentment and frustration led to an early death, and I've been buried here for more than 20 years. The area beneath this mansion is full of graves." Zhang asked, "Who is the old servant?" The young woman replied, "She's also a deceased ghost, dedicated to serving me. When there are living people residing above, the ghosts below cannot rest. Just now, I sent her to drive you away." Zhang inquired further, "Why did she grope at me?" The young woman laughed and answered, "This old servant hasn't experienced any romantic encounters for 30 years. It's quite pitiable, but she's also presumptuous. In general, those who are fearful and timid will be bullied and tormented by ghosts. Those who are strong and upright, ghosts won't dare to invade." Hearing the neighboring bell ringing, the young woman got dressed and said, "If suspicion isn't aroused, I'll definitely come again tonight." Sure enough, that night the young woman appeared, and their affection grew deeper. Zhang said, "My wife has unfortunately passed away, and my feelings of mourning persist. Can you bring her back for me?" The young woman was saddened by the request and said, "I've been dead for 20 years. Who has remembered me? You're truly sentimental, and I'll do my best. However, I've heard that she's already found a new life, but I don't know if she's still in the underworld." After a night, the young woman told Zhang, "Your wife is going to be reborn into a wealthy family. In her previous life, she lost a pair of earrings, and her questioning and whipping of a maid led to the maid's suicide. This case hasn't been resolved yet, so she's still in the underworld. Currently, she's staying in the Hall of Medicine King, under supervision. I've sent a maid to bribe them, hoping to bring her here. Qi Sheng asked, "Why are you so at ease?" The young woman replied, "Ghosts that died unjustly don't willingly present themselves. Yama King hasn't even had a chance to know." When the second watch was about to end, the old servant indeed led Qi Sheng's wife to him. Qi Sheng held his wife's hand, deeply saddened. His wife had tears in her eyes, but couldn't speak. The young woman bid farewell, saying, "The two of you can converse and say your farewells. We'll meet again after tonight." Qi Sheng asked his wife about the maid's suicide. His wife said, "Don't worry, that matter has already been resolved." The two embraced on the bed, sharing love and joy just like in their lives. From then on, their joyful reunions became a regular occurrence. 5 days later, the wife suddenly cried out, "Tomorrow, I will depart for Shandong, and we will be separated in prolonged suffering. What can we do?" Upon hearing this, Qi Shi was overcome with tears, aching and sorrowful to the point where he could hardly bear it. Adun consoled him, saying, "I have a solution that can temporarily reunite you." The couple wiped away their tears and inquired about her plan. Adun asked Qi Shi to prepare 10 strings of paper money and burn them beneath the apricot tree in front of the southern house. She intended to take the money to bribe the underworld official, who was escorting Qi Shi's wife to her next life, in order to delay their separation. Qi Shi followed her instructions. In the evening, his wife arrived and said, "Thanks to Adun's help, we have gained another 10 days of reunion." Qi Shi was overjoyed and decided not to let Adun leave, keeping her with them. They spent every evening to dawn together, fearing that they might lose their happiness. After 7 or 8 days, as the 10-day deadline approached, Qi Shi and his wife spent the entire night weeping and searching for a solution. Adun said, "It seems difficult to find another solution. However, we can try again, but this time it will require 100,000 in spirit money." Qi Shi burnt the paper money exactly as instructed. Adun returned, happily saying, "I persuaded the overseeing underworld official with the help of my contacts. Initially, it was challenging, but upon seeing so much money, his resolve began to waver. He has now allowed another ghost to take my place in guiding your wife's rebirth." From then on, Adun no longer left during the daytime. She stayed with Qi Shi and his wife, who closed all doors and windows, keeping the candles constantly lit. After over a year, Adun suddenly fell ill. She became disoriented, restless, and agitated, as if she had encountered something supernatural. Qi Shi's wife comforted her, saying, "She's afflicted by ghosts." Qi Shi responded, "Adun is already a ghost herself, so what kind of ghost could make her sick?" His wife explained, "Not necessarily. When people die, they become ghosts, and when ghosts die, they become lost spirits. Ghosts fear lost spirits, just like how people fear ghosts." Qi Shi considered seeking a shamanic healer for Adun. His wife said, "How can ghosts be treated by humans? Our neighbor, Madame Wang, who has become a witch in the underworld, could be invited. However, it's quite a distance away, and my feet are weak. Could you burn a paper horse for me?" Qi Shi agreed and did as she asked. As soon as the paper horse was lit, a black-tailed red horse appeared, and a maid brought it over. The horse's reins were handed to Qi Shi's wife, and in an instant, both the horse and the maid vanished. Not long after, Qi Shi's wife and an old lady arrived riding on the red horse. They tied the horse to a pillar and entered the house. The old lady checked Adun's pulse by feeling her 10 fingers. Then, Adun sat properly in a chair, her head trembling, and she collapsed to the ground for a moment. Suddenly, she stood up and said, "I am the Black Mountain King. The lady's illness is severe. Luckily, she encountered a minor deity. Her fortune is not shallow. This illness is due to malevolent spirits, but don't worry. Once she recovers, you must provide a generous offering, 100 taels of silver, 100 guan of money, and a sumptuous feast. Nothing can be omitted." Qi Shi's wife agreed to everything loudly. The old lady fell to the ground again and then rose, scolding the patient before finally departing. After a while, She said her goodbyes and left, taking the horse as a gift. Adun seemed a bit more lucid than before. The couple was elated and comforted her. Suddenly, Adun spoke. I'm afraid I cannot return to the mortal realm again. Every time I close my eyes, I see vengeful ghosts. It seems this is my fate. Tears streamed down her face. After a night passed, Adun's condition worsened. She trembled and convulsed, as if she had seen something horrifying. She pulled Kishi and his wife close, burying her head in his chest as if trying to hide from something. When Kishi moved, she screamed in distress. This continued for 6 or 7 days, with the couple unable to find a solution. Coincidentally, Kishi had to leave for a matter, and he returned only after half a day, hearing his wife's cries. He asked anxiously about the situation and learned that Adun had passed away in bed. Her remains were still there. When the cover was lifted, only a pile of bones remained. Kishi was overcome with sorrow and followed proper rituals to bury her next to the ancestral tomb. One night, Kishi's wife sobbed in her sleep. He woke her and asked what was wrong. She said, I dreamt that Adun came. She said her husband had become a lost spirit and was furious with her for not maintaining her fidelity in the underworld. He pursued her life, and she asked me to establish a place of salvation. Early in the morning, Kishi prepared to do as his wife had suggested. However, she stopped him, saying, delivering souls is not something you can accomplish with your own strength. She got up and left. After a while, she returned and said, I have already invited monks. First, we need to burn spirit money as an offering. Kishi followed her instructions. As the sun set, many monks gathered, and the sound of golden bells and dharma drums resonated as if in the mortal world. While Kishi's wife found the noise unbearable, Kishi himself couldn't hear a thing. After the ritual was complete, his wife dreamed of Adun expressing her gratitude, saying, the resentment has been resolved. She will soon be reborn as the daughter of a city god. Please relay the message. 3 years passed, and while the family was initially frightened, they gradually became accustomed to the situation. When Kishi was away, family members would communicate with his wife through the windows. One night, she cried to Kishi, the underworld official who escorted us before has been exposed for taking bribes and cheating. They're investigating urgently. It's possible that our reunion will be short-lived. A few days later, his wife indeed fell ill. She explained that due to her deep affection for him, she was willing to endure prolonged suffering and not move on to the next life. She concluded, now, we must part forever. Perhaps it's destiny. Kishi felt an overwhelming sense of panic and implored her to find a solution. She replied, it's no longer possible. He asked, will there be consequences? She responded, there will be some punishment. However, the crime of evading one's fate is greater than that of dying intentionally. As she finished speaking, she gradually vanished. Her appearance, face, and form dissolving. Kishi often spent nights alone in the pavilion, hoping for another encounter, but ultimately, nothing more happened. As time passed, his heart settled, and he found his sense of equilibrium once again.
Alright, this story has come to an end. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you.